All right, so let's go over a more practical use case kind of on a day-to-day. And we're going to do research. So we're going to start kind of doing research on specific topics. And again, a lot of what we're going to go over is a lot of the operational work that product teams have to do, because that's really what AI is particularly good at. It's good at doing that, heavy lifting, going through and clicking 1,000 different links and figuring out of all of this research, all this data, kind of what can I do, what can I think about. So we're going to kind of start collecting some research and start building a hypothesis and kind of work through a workflow. So I'm going to think about something that we're working on at BuildBetter right now. Right now, we're working on a customer insights dashboard. So we're trying to think about, okay, what would be kind of what would the best customer insights dashboard really care about? So I might not know. I have some competitors kind of in my mind, but maybe there's a tool I've never thought about, or maybe there's some research around the best user research dashboards out there. So I'll go to Perplexity, and instead of kind of going to ChatGPT, which will kind of pull from its own knowledge, I can kind of come here and say, what would be the best insights for a customer research dashboard for a product software team? So this is going to go out on the internet, and it's going to find articles and search results and even competitors and best practices, and it's kind of going through all this and saying, okay, heat maps are really important, session recordings, that makes a lot of sense, user journey, time on task measurements and stuff like that. And you might be thinking, okay, doesn't OpenAI also have their own AI stuff? So we'll create a new thread here. And the internet search doesn't work for some of the models yet. So I'm going to go here and just do a general search, and it will do kind of a quick web search, and we'll kind of come back with a response, and might even look at some of the other stuff. But you'll see here that it does get a different result. So I tend to look at, and whether this is a better result or not, that's kind of up to you to determine. It has good citations, but it looks like it's basically just pulling more or less from one document. It looks like this one pulls from a second one, where this one pulls from a lot of different sources. It looks like over 10 different citations in this from a lot of different sources itself. And I personally kind of prefer that. I want it to be a little bit more like go over more data. I want to kind of look through more information, and I could even save this. I could add this to a space. Maybe I want to create a new one about dashboard projects or whatever it might be, and I can use a different model for each one of these. And again, like, you don't have to think about a lot of this stuff. Usually the defaults are going to be good enough, but as we talked about in previous videos, you might find a better model for specific things. So for example, like the Sonnet might be Sonnet generally, I would say, is better at conversational stuff, like writing, creative writing. 4.0 is just kind of the standard model, so you're just going to get a generally good thing. And then there's a Perplexity model, which is just optimized. We kind of talked about these fine-tunings, optimizations. This one would be optimized just for searching, so just faster searching and stuff like that. And then of course we have the O1, which can kind of think through some of these problems, but you're kind of have a usage limit, so you got to be careful. It might actually, and the O1 for this specific use case might not be better at searching than even their cheapest or most automatic model, just because it hasn't been fine-tuned, hasn't been trained on that specific task. It just because a model is bigger or it's newer doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have the best. I generally, for Perplexity, have used a 3.5 Sonnet, because I do find that it does a little bit better job than the 4.0 model for this specific task. But that, my mileage may vary. So check on the thing that you're trying to do. If you're doing a research project, you might see something else. So I would kind of start saving this information, and I'd be like, okay, what are the common complaints about user insight dashboards for user research purposes? And now I might be able to get some, competitive research on what were kind of the top complaints. I might even be able to find, what are the top tools that do this type of analysis. And I could make this a separate query where I'm now saving this as like competitive research on that side. But what I want to do is actually want to kind of combine this. So I'm going to start asking, okay, so there's amplitude, mixed panel, hotjar, cool. Okay, so how well do those competitive tools address the top problems that user researchers would have? I'm trying to think of a SWOT analysis of competitors and the needs of the market. So now I'm kind of getting a little bit more into, and you see, I'm not really doing any prompt engineering. I'm not saying pretend to be, a researcher who's building the world's best dashboard for customer. I don't really have to do that anymore. I'm really just kind of asking, okay, I'm just trying to think through this. And you see, this is genuinely how I would do it. It looks like it's actually using the reasoning model for this, which is great. It knows that this is somewhat of a complex task, and it actually might be generating a SWOT analysis for me itself. And it looks like it's kind of evaluating, kind of going through these. And there might be tools in the future that might go through different review platforms. So it might go through G2 or something like that. But you'll see here it kind of goes through some of the reviews and complaints and some of the feedback. And here it does a pretty good job. So, based off of the criteria that I gave it, and I could change the criteria. It says, okay, amplitude, okay, blah, 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 effectiveness, cool. I would agree. Probably Google Analytics would be pretty bad at that. Opportunities, strength, threats in the market, AI emerging, all this kind of stuff. Okay, I didn't really want the strengths to be which ones are strong. I wanted, let's take amplitude, mixed panel, let's take the companies in the strength category and let's do a SWOT on each one of those tools individually, because I didn't want a SWOT of like just which tools are strong and which tools are weak. I wanted the SWOT to be of each. And let's have a table generated where the rows are each tool and the columns are each category in the SWOT analysis. So this might be a little bit too complex for it. It looks like it is using the reasoning for it, but you can kind of think of generating this data here. I could then take this and use this in a canvas, which we'll talk a little bit more about, where I might want to start generating specific assets or specific like documents or something like that might look a specific way. So you'll see here, okay, cool. So now we're getting a real SWOT analysis. So amplitude, strengths, strong brand recognition, weaknesses, relatively highly priced compared to competitors, opportunity expansion to AI-driven insights, potential integrations, competition offering. Okay, it's not a tremendous amount of insight per one, intense competition from other analytics tools. Okay, cool. I might want to dive into each one of these one by one and say, okay, well, let's talk about mixed panel. Like what are some of the feedback or specific critiques that people are having on mixed panel? And then let's kind of like think about that. So let's say we got all this information and I'm just going to copy and paste this and we'll use a canvas. So we'll kind of go here and we can say, and I'm going to kind of show you some good and some bad, but we'll see, 4.0, we have this canvas opportunity, and canvases are basically, it will kind of pop up a UI on the right-hand side. So it gives us a better editing experience. So I'm going to go here, and the same thing I could do with Claude. Claude has a canvas as well. But as you can see, Claude cannot access URLs. I can add this and create a project from this. So if I wanted to say, hey, this is for my dashboard project, and I wanted to create this, and I can even add files and other stuff to that as well. But I need to write a PRD about us building a customer insights dashboard based on where the weaknesses are from our competitors. Now, you're probably catching on, hey, Spencer, it doesn't really know who you are, and it doesn't really know who the competitors are. And I'll show you kind of what this looks like. And I think, again, I generally would say that Claude has the better writing than 4.0. But the 0.1 models from OpenAI tend to be pretty good at writing as well. And I can kind of change my writing style and tone. So if I was writing a lot of PRDs and I wanted to kind of write a lot of documents or a lot of specific things, I can kind of do that here. But you'll see this is fine. I mean, this isn't a particularly great thing, but I'm gonna copy and paste this, and let's try this over on ChatGPT. So this one also has a canvas. I want to say Anthropic probably really started this. They're called artifacts, but you'll see it's generating one in its canvas. It kind of expands it. It's nice and beautiful and cool. But this definitely is giving me probably more of a traditional PRD structure here. So it might be understood the question a little bit better. It might have a better context. And ChatGPT does have some really good editing. So I love that it's giving me that. I love me a good table. And this one didn't really give me any tables or visualizations. It could, like, I can go back and ask it, hey, I want you to make these changes or these edits. And of course, I can change different writing styles. So if I want to say I love tables, I love charts, I love graphs, we can kind of do that analysis as well. Looks like I just clicked on one of those links. And then we'll kind of go here. And we're still writing the document on ChatGPT, which is great. It means it's really taking its time and it's really kind of thinking through this stuff. But again, if I'm reading through this, the goal of this project is to build a customer insights dashboard that leverages competitive weaknesses, blah, 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 blah. And it's just kind of going through it. But it knows absolutely nothing about our product or BuildBetter. So, its ability to kind of understand where could BuildBetter be a little bit better or not doesn't really know that. It's a beautiful document. I mean, it looks good. And I'm sure if I were to have written this myself, it probably would have taken me a long time, so I can really start editing it. And you'll see here, just how much easier it is. Again, I can highlight this and I could say, okay, I want to improve this, or I can highlight this and say, oh, here's some context about what we're working on. And same thing with ChatGPT. I can kind of highlight this and, ask it to explain it or edit it or write it in a different way or whatever it might be. So it's really good for kind of this writing and documents. But again, is this useful for me? Not so much. I really liked the research that I got from here, but I didn't actually feel like it ended up doing anything for me. Instead, we're going to use kind of BuildBetter, and BuildBetter, we'll talk a little bit more about it, but effectively BuildBetter is a tool built for product teams. We really focus on the product operation work. And our main core thing is like, how do we get data from that's already being created at the company? So, customer data from support tickets to internal meetings from engineers to external user research and sales calls. And then we put all that in one place and we write these beautiful call summaries, and we allow you to ask questions to it, and we extract data, all this kind of stuff. But for this, intents and purposes, I want to write something based off of the specific data that we had. So I'm going to pull this. I'm going to write a PRD, but using Coverage Inside, and use the information about BuildBetter to improve this and make this, applicable to our company, from our context and calls and signals. So I'm just, leading a little bit just to make this simpler. But you'll see here, it's gonna, has those information, and it's gonna take some time to kind of find the information. So right now it's searching through recordings that might be relevant to this. It's going through all of our internal calls, all of our external calls. It's gonna be, ingesting that data, and then it's going to kind of come back. And let's see what it does. It does citations. So, it's pulling from calls that maybe we've talked about these tools in the past. So at any point I can kind of go to those citations and say, okay, this is relevant. It knows that our tool is, for product managers. So it really focuses on that. It also knows that we have call recording capabilities and our custom models, and we have project briefs and stuff like that. And so we might be able to generate specific insights. And what's important here is that when we look at all of this, and I'm not here to show off BuildBetter too much, I think that the point here is that the goal for writing really good documentation with AI is, does it have the right context? Now, I could take a lot of time to give Claude or ChatGPT context about my company, what features we have. And one thing that you can often do if you don't have a tool like BuildBetter is you can write this context. So you can kind of write, here's what I do and what our product does. And you can kind of copy and paste this, everything you do. Here's what we do. Here's what our product does. And so every response would be much, much, much better. And so, you can continue to use these tools like Claude and ChatGPT for research. And I really do recommend using tools like Perplexity and some of these very, very specific tools to get that knowledge, to get that context, but then piping ultimately that into something else. Now, sometimes these tools like Perplexity, you can kind of convert this into a page, and you can kind of maybe write a little research project basically off of some of these key insights, and you can use that as even a better document or context. But when we think about it, we really want to think about it's not just about the information that we can get from outside of the world. It's the information that we have inside of our heads, inside of our organization, from our customers. That's what really makes these tools really powerful. So whether it's exporting a transcript that maybe you've had a customer user research call about and giving that context to the AI, maybe it's using ChatGPT and giving this kind of like generic prompt about like what our product does and who our customers are. There's a thousand ways of skinning this cat. Or you can use a tool like BuildBetter that already has this context and it's constantly updated. It's able to go to the specific calls and the specific knowledge and be able to pull on that so that you don't have to write a whole thing about what your company does or who your customers are or what type of features you guys are working on. And so you can just kind of have a more straightforward experience with these models. So there's a lot of these tools, and I show BuildBetter as just one example. There's a lot of tools for product managers, and we're going to talk about prototyping and some of these other things that we don't do at BuildBetter today, but we can kind of show and highlight how to turn this stuff into something quite usable. So that it would be how I would kind of go through doing user research on the internet about competitive analysis, SWOT analysis, and then we're going to turn that into real user research. We're going to turn these into prototypes, and we're going to talk about some other tools that you can use. But that's a high level on research with these tools, and then how to use that research and turn that into anything, whether you're using Claude, OpenAI, or a tool like BuildBetter. Talk to you later.